And so, Fairy Tail 2014 ends in 2016. A 2-year run. It's finally over, once again. So, to briefly discuss this, apparently there is going to be some form of continuation in the future, because Hiro Mashima was talking about this on his Twitter. It's saying like he's going to be leading like the next project or something, so it doesn't seem like this is the end for the Fairy Tail anime. Apparently it will come back. If I had to make any guesses, I'm going to assume that once we're done with the major arc going on in, Fairy Tail's manga, I'm going to assume it's like one of the final arcs of the series. That's when most likely we're probably going to get another anime of Fairy Tail. If I had to place any bets, I want to assume if there is going to be an anime of Fairy Tail anytime soon, it might be sometime in, 2017. That's when I assume a new anime would possibly come out. And that's a long time. It's a very long time, but I mean, we have to wait for content to build up, and I think we can all agree we'd rather have a break than have a series go through filler hell. For instance, Naruto, there's a huge filler hell going on right now, and I mean, I think we all can agree we'd rather have it go on a hiatus, even though it sucks. We'd rather have it go on a hiatus and then have just filler that degrades the series, and you're just like, fuck this shit, and you just want to drop it and not watch it ever again. So I'm glad that Fairy Tail, at the very least, is stopping for now and waiting for the content to build up. So I respect that. Exactly what Gintama is doing, too. Gintama is going to be ending as well, so yeah, it's doing the exact same thing Fairy Tail is doing. So getting back on topic, Fairy Tail's final episode of its 2014 series. The final episode, I know kind of where it was going to end. I already assumed, I had my brief guesses that it was going to end when Lucy and Natsu set off on their journey to find Fairy Tail, and that's kind of where this episode ended at. Now, to really get into the truth part about this episode, the final episode felt like a filler episode, or more of a episode that made you feel like it was the first episode of Fairy Tail. Let me clarify. If you go back to the first episode of Fairy Tail, not Fairy Tail 2014, but Fairy Tail in general, if you go back to that episode, you see a lot of similarities between these episodes, and it's like how the first part of Fairy Tail started off. Natsu and Lucy were like the only characters along with Happy, and they were journeying to go to Fairy Tail, and that's kind of what's going on here on this final episode. They're setting off on their new journey, and I like the way this episode tries to correlate with that. It's a very good episode, the way they try to execute that, and I have no issue whatsoever. But I know that there's going to be many that's going to be looking at this episode and going to be rather disappointed, because it was, honestly, at the end of the day, it didn't really give us much new information besides setting up the last final half of the episode. Like, majority of the episode had a flashback with, Natsu and Happy of how they were going on their adventures, and you had it to where they were trying to go after this fish that was stolen from them. And that scene overall, it was kind of like, yeah, it was just like, okay, it's average, I mean, it's okay, but it was like, okay, I mean, I wish you could, spend more time focusing on some other things, like some really good things, because that entire part, honestly, you could have just skipped. Now, the guild art stuff, now that's some interesting stuff, because that lets us know that Natsu was at the very least training with guild arts for a little bit. He was at least fighting with him, getting to see his power, strength, and stuff, and so that goes to show you that Natsu at the very least had a good fight while he was off training. We don't really get to see the extent of his training, which I felt like the entire flashback scenes could have been used for, but I guess they're probably going to save that most likely for the, next anime series when it finally does come out. Now, one thing I do want to talk about, which caught me by surprise, once, the episode was said and done, like, it was just GG, the series is done, you start having, the ending song play, you see a different type of credits. And the credits showcase the wall of what Lucy, has been trying to do. She's been trying to find out where all the Fairy Tail members are. And as it's slowly paneling over this, eventually a new song kicks in. And it took me a moment to really think about it. Like, it took me at least 5 to 10 seconds to think about it. I'm like, this song, like, what the fuck? Is this what I think it is? That's what I was thinking when I saw the ending song starting to play. And you see these scenes from the first arc of Fairy Tail, the first fucking arc of Fairy Tail, not 2014, but Fairy Tail, You see all these still covers of these different arcs getting new illustrations, and you hear this song, and I'm like, wait a minute, isn't this from the original Fairy Tail anime series? Not 2014, but Fairy Tail. And I heard that song, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is the first time we have heard an original soundtrack from the original series. And I'm like, this is nostalgic as fuck. But then what really got me was when you had that montage of nostalgia with all the arcs being showcased with new illustrations, with, you know, the new animation style, and animation and art style to clarify. And I'm like, yo, this looks awesome. This is nostalgic. This is badass. And, I mean, regardless of what anyone wants to say about this final episode, regardless of it kind of being a little bit, like, fillerish in a way because of the flashbacks, that ending, that nostalgic ending, won me over. And yes, I know it's not good to always focus on nostalgia, but still, it's been a long time since I've seen those scenes, especially animated, or it wasn't really animated, it was still frames, but still, it's been a long time since I've seen that in the anime. And to see that once again, to hear that theme song in a new episode, for the final episode at that, and I see, like, the Tower of Heaven, and I see, you know, getting to see, like, the Edelos and all that, it made me just kind of a little bit hyped and sad because it is over. It really started kicking in that Fairy Tail's anime is over, and when I saw that, I was like, fuck, it's done. Now, I wonder why they were trying to do that. I guess they were trying to honor the original series because it's ending with the music and all that. I wonder if they are going to, if they ever do continue, when they do continue, actually. It's not a matter if, but when they will. I wonder if they will use that music, if they will use the original soundtrack in the next Fairy Tail anime, because that's what I've always wanted. And if there's one thing I could say about the, you know, Fairy Tail 2014 series, it's that the music didn't have that life to it like the original Fairy Tail. I gotta be honest here. There were some good, you know, opening and ending songs, I won't put that down, but when it came to the original soundtrack, none of the music sounded as epic as the fucking soundtrack from the original Fairy Tail series. Like, I'll never forget that Armor Titania song. That song from the original Fairy Tail is one of my personal favorites, and I wish I could have heard it in this, but I didn't, of course. But there was some issues, and I'm going to go into that since this is my final review of the 2014 series. The art and animation. To compare it to the original Fairy Tail and this Fairy Tail, I personally prefer the original Fairy Tail. The art of this series, it looked a little bit more like the manga style, but I felt like when it came to the overall appreciation to Fairy Tail, like going the extra mile, this series did not do it as much as the original Fairy Tail, or at the very least did not have the budget as the original Fairy Tail. And the original Fairy Tail was a whole lot longer than this Fairy Tail, and it still looked better, consistently better than this Fairy Tail, which saddens me because I miss the, you know, the magical circles, and I mentioned this briefly a long time ago in the earlier portions of Fairy Tail 2014, but I'm sad that the magic circles and stuff were gone. They weren't in this series, they weren't really apparent, and a lot of the fights were very under budgeted, didn't look the best as they could have been compared to how the fights were in the original Fairy Tail series, and I could definitely see, I mean, since it's a long-running series, it could definitely be tough for a lot of anime studios. And, I mean, yeah, I just really hope if we ever do get an anime, which I am assuming we are, I hope that it gets the budget that the previous Fairy Tail series had, not this one, because there was clearly signs of not as up to quality or standards as the previous one was. But, yeah, I still like the ending nostalgia that I got. It was still a very fun ride. I'm sad to see it go. And until next time, Fairy Tail, until next time the anime begins. So you all have a wonderful day, or night, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.